Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Michael Brenner. And Michael, I've been really looking forward to having this conversation with you. You create so much great content, and you cause such great controversy out there as well. That I was looking forward to interview you. So we're going to talk about marketing ain't what it was going to be. Before we do that, tell people where they can get hold of you.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the CEO of Marketing Insider Group. So you can find me on my website, marketinginsidergroup.com. And where you and I hang out most of the time is LinkedIn. So, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And I mean, I only say this if Michael's got great content, and whether you agree with it or not, it's worth reading, because I think it's a point of view that's worth taking into account.
Thanks.
So before we get into it, why don't you just give a little bit of background, because you've actually had some really interesting roles, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been a pretty fun career thus far. Started in sales and really followed my frustration into the marketing profession. I didn't feel like, as a salesperson, I was handed a brochure, with printed on glossy paper and told to sell stuff. And this is not what marketing is supposed to be. And so, had spent 25 years in corporate and startup marketing roles, really trying to focus like a salesperson, like I was as a salesperson, on just getting results. And, so you talk about how I create content that causes controversy. I used to tell a boss of mine, it's just math. It's like, sorry, I'm doing stuff that delivers business results. We can talk about your opinion, but I'm here to deliver results. And that's kind of where I start from.
So you work for the famous organization, because they were competitors of mine. You see,
that's right.
SAP, yeah, they were big. You were the big evil empire.
That's right.
From where I worked.
Yeah.
So you worked at SAP, which was fun. I like working with SAP now; they're fun. But in the past, they were the evil empire.
Yeah, I mean, they were, it was pretty, marketing at SAP when I joined was the people that, put the banners at the booth of the trade show. And every once in a while sales would complain about not getting leads, and I, understood that pain. And so I was asked to deliver digital marketing programs that actually delivered leads to sales. And so I wasn't very popular at first, because I pointed out all the things like, you did this and you did this and you did this, and it generated 0 leads, and your budget is supposed to be generating leads. So why don't we just do things that work? And yeah, it was a lot of fun. And, it's kind of like most of my career, I landed on these sort of digital marketing, inbound marketing, content marketing kind of concepts. To me, it's what marketing was supposed to be all along. So maybe we'll get into that, but I just landed on what works.
So can you, because you have a great story about what you did at SAP, and I think it's a great case study about, you were told to do X and you said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do Y, and what it generated, because it is a great example of using digital in a way that generates stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was, like I said, I called it you can't have a cake and tell me how to bake it dilemma. And I talk about it in one of my books. And I remember having this conversation with one of our stakeholders, and she's like, I want a chocolate cake, but I want you to use olive oil and, olives and, sand from the beach, when you bake it. I'm like, no, you want a chocolate cake, I'll get you the cake, but I know how to bake it. So don't tell me what ingredients to use. And once I had that conversation with her, we had a great relationship. We had conversations about results, not about tactics. And I presented the justifications behind the decisions that we made and the budget investments that we made. And it was all focused around that result, not on her opinion about what tactics work.
And you went for a content marketing approach.
Well, you see, so it was interesting. I started in a North American region as sort of I was called Director of Innovation, and my job was to find programs that worked and scale them. And what I found was that almost all of the programs didn't work, and except for one. And I'll tell you, she's still there. Her name is Ginger Shimp. I don't know if you've talked to her or know her. She's head of director, VP of thought leadership now. And she was the only one that was running a consistent, always-on, content-based approach to generating leads. And she generated almost 80% of all the leads of the entire department, even though there were 26 industries, and she was focused on 2 or 3. And so, very quickly, I just pointed out, let's do what she's doing. And, it just happened to be a consistent content marketing program where we, hung white papers on websites and tried to attract people instead of, trying to ship brochures all over the world. And so it worked. I mean, we generated massive amounts of return on investment, huge numbers of leads for sales. And ultimately it led to a global position for me on content marketing and a global platform, which, still exists today. So it's pretty kind of cool to watch and see that grow.
One of our clients have said to us that the days of throwing a white paper into a bunch of strangers is over.
Yeah. We have to meet, buyers where they are. We have to help them with the problems that they're facing and the ways that they're navigating the challenges of their workplace. And just because you have a shiny object you want to throw in front of somebody doesn't mean that it's going to work. And now increasingly you have to spend so much to try to do that it doesn't hardly ever make sense.
I was speaking at a conference here in the UK, and I was talking about the fact that the people you can create white papers, but generally, do people actually read them, or do they? They're supposed to be at the top of funnel, and that. And I said that you'd be far better off writing small pieces of content that people will read. And someone put their hand up and they said, "I don't agree with that." I said, "Oh, don't you?" So why not? He said, "Well, my marketing agency doesn't agree with that." And I said, "Is that because your marketing agency, you pay them to write these things that nobody reads?" And he sat down.
Yeah, it's, for many people, I don't know if we'll get into this, the definition of marketing is, hire an agency and give them all your money and have them tell you what to do. And, that was never the approach I took with marketing.
So I got a load of questions for you that I thought I'd work through. Right. Is disruption new?
No, it's, from the day humans, brains awoke, we've seen disruption happening. But there's definitely an acceleration. 2020 is I don't know if you've seen the meme, but it's a dumpster fire all over the world. But it's like I love to say, working from home, telehealth, online events have always been a good idea. Right? Like commuting an hour to the office never made sense when you could spend those 2 hours both ways being productive. Or why do I need to go into the doctor when I can tell her what my symptoms are and she can prescribe what I need instead of going into the office to make her, everybody sick? Like the things that we're doing now have always been a good idea. Yeah. The current crises are just making it more common sense.
Yeah. And so, has the way we connect with our buyers changed?
Yeah, I think I use my kids to kind of tell the story. My oldest is 17 and she shares a birthday with LinkedIn. And so it was a couple of years ago that I realized, wow, it's pretty interesting. My daughter is not old enough to vote or to, drink alcohol legally at least. And, so social media as a platform is such a relatively young, sort of thing in the world. And no function has really been more disrupted from social media than marketing, because what we now do as buyers is we reach out to the friends and family that we know and ask them for advice. And, we go online more increasingly than we did, certainly 15 years ago, 17 years ago. And so the world has fundamentally changed because of these social platforms, but the function of marketing has dramatically changed. Here in the US, we used to have, 3 television channels, and now there's, 300. The massive numbers of channels and ways that people can get information is just, grown exponentially. So, I continue to say there's what we've always wanted to say, buy my stuff because I'm awesome, and what consumers want. And, consumers often want, to watch pictures of babies and kittens and puppies and, GIFs and memes and all those kinds of fun things. The answer for marketing lies in the middle. It's about not promoting what you want or how awesome you are, but solving, problems that real people have. And the brands that do that are the ones that are winning.
So I know that in one of the articles you wrote, you actually gave an example that you have one child is the same age as LinkedIn, one child is the same age as the iPhone, one child is the same age as Snapchat and something. So and it's a great example, because what you do is you see how actually, you've got beautiful children, but they're also very young.
Yeah.
And immature, not immature as people, but they're young children. And kind of what these things are.
Yeah, I think we think that we kind of forget that we didn't used to walk around with iPhones, and there was, there's a couple television shows on Netflix that my family watched where the kids aren't on their phones, and because if they were on their phones, the plot line wouldn't make any sense. And it's a little bit funny and a little bit strange. Like, are they on a different planet, or is it a parallel universe? Or, we just forget like that we didn't used to be able to just plug an address into our phone and be able to get, navigated directions. Like, we forget how we got places just 15 years ago. And so, like I said, but, like kids have been for me, for at least, the 4 that I have, dramatically, disrupted the way that we live.
It's like watching an old black and white film and they're all smoking.
Yeah, right.
What are you? Yeah. Yeah, and the fact that when I started in business, there wasn't an internet, there wasn't even email, but people go, I don't believe that.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I had clients. So email sort of started right around when I came out of university, and I remember I remember teaching clients as a salesperson how to use it. And that, I mean, I'm not that old, but it's, it's people don't, we just forget how recent some of these phenomenons are and how much it's impacted and disrupted the way that we do business, and especially the world of marketing.
So even though we've got all of those things, and even though we're now very modern, do you think that marketing is stuck in a traditional mindset?
100%. I mean, when you were watching one television show because it was the only thing that was on, marketers had a great opportunity to reach people, by interrupting the stuff that they were watching. And now, you're watching a show, you're on your phone, you're talking to people. I mean, it's the distractions that we have today are just so massive. And yet people are still stuck in that mindset where they think that consumers and buyers out there are just waiting for your promotional message. And so, I see it as, gosh, a vast majority of marketers are still very traditionally minded. And,
I met with this person in London for coffee, and she was 25 in marketing. And I said, so how do you, market your products? And she said, well, we advertise. I said, oh, that's interesting. And I said, so what do you think about ad blockers? And she hadn't connected the dots, and she said, "Oh yeah, we all use them in the marketing department." So I said, "So you advertise your products, but you all use ad blockers?" And it was like she just couldn't get the fact that the irony of so you're blocking what you're trying to sell, and she just couldn't get it.
Yeah,
and I think it, with iOS 13, we've now moved on to iOS 14 now with iPhone. With iOS 13, you could block cold calls.
Yeah.
I mean, someone cold called me today, and I happened to call them back, and then they said, "Oh, it's from so-and-so." I said, "I'll just stop the call," and just immediately block them. So they won't ever call me back.
Yeah.
So there's so many ways that we can stop people from interrupting us.
That's right.
But I just, even though you talk to people, we did a presentation in Australia, and we're explaining to people, you get up in the morning and you put the radio on. As soon as the ads come on, you change the channel. You get in the car, you put the radio on. As soon as the ads come on, you change the channel. You don't look at the advert on the back of the bus. You don't even notice it. And then you go into the office, sit down at your desk, and then basically buy some advertising. And the girl sat there, put her hands in her hands and said, "That's me. I did that this morning."
Yeah.
She said, "I've just bought some advertising." She said, "I know no one will look at it."
Yeah.
I don't know why I bought it. She said, "It's just like I think I'm kind of addicted to it or something."
I call it marketing amnesia. We buy and create the kind of marketing that we as a consumer would never see or consume or even, or like, at least. And so, why do we do that? Why do we sit down at our laptops and do stuff as a business marketer that we as a consumer would hate?
Is that because we as marketers are measured on their budget? So if they stopped advertising, they would have to give the budget back, or they would have to admit that the advertising wouldn't work, or questions.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think at the heart of what's wrong with marketing is marketers think that their job is to do stuff, to spend money, and that their value is in their budgets, right? Like you said. And, so if you're a CMO at a large brand, of course you're going to hire an expensive agency, waste money on expensive ads that no one's going to see, everyone's going to block. It's not going to have any impact to the business that you can measure, ironically, and isn't that nice, for the CMO to say, well, we think, X number of people saw it, or we think saw it, but it's advertising, so we can't really measure the impact. And the problem is a lot of times what CMOs are doing, or, I love to tell the joke about, how most CMOs are buying, ads and putting their logos on stadiums because their CEO told them to. And it's the same CEOs that turn around and say, well, where's the ROI? And they say, well, I did the thing you told me to do, but now you're asking me to show the results. And that thing that you asked us to do doesn't deliver return on investment. So it's, something has to change. And so that's why, I try to encourage marketers to take a stand, to demand to be able to deliver and create marketing programs that deliver results so that you can measure and demonstrate the strategic value of marketing. And that's what marketing really should be.
And so you are in effect suggest that marketers should do that and take a stand.
Yeah, I think we have to, because otherwise we're going to be relegated to just, taskmasters. I mean, if all you do is what your boss tells you to do, then what value do you have? Anybody can do it. And so, but if we're strategically delivering business value that a board can understand, then the role, the function, the esteem that marketers get continues, to grow, hopefully. But it's two worlds. We have the world of marketers that just do what they're told, and the world, the smaller universe of us that try to defend and fight for doing something that has value.
So I know that. So is content marketing critical? My next question. And I know that you actually have a piece of research that says that content marketing is 7 times more effective than advertising.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, again, it's for those people. Well, first of all, the definition of content marketing, like, what is it? Most people think, and I always say this: marketing with content is not the same thing as content marketing.
Right.
Marketing with content is, you create a white paper or you buy an ad and you hope that people, consume it and then buy your stuff. But you can't measure it. It's investment or expense-based kind of activity. Content marketing is strategic. It's customer focused. It's always on, and it delivers, a measurable business value. So, we only have the term content marketing because we have to differentiate it from marketers who do stuff, marketers who spend money on content that they're marketing their products with. Content marketing is just a strategic approach. So yes, I think it's critical. In fact, it's what we should be calling marketing in the first place. It's the perception we should have of marketing in the first place. It should be strategic and customer focused, but delivering business value. And so, yeah, I think it's critical. The research that you referenced, so we have, a couple dozen clients, and they're averaging $7 in revenue for every dollar that they spend. Most of the budget that we take from our clients came from programs that didn't deliver any return on investment. Sponsorships at events, or full page ads in the trade journals, or, a ad on the side of a bus. There were things like, were they a good idea? I don't know. I'm not here to say that they weren't a good idea, but they didn't deliver any measurable value. So most of our budget comes from those places where, marketers are just doing what they're told.
I mean, one of the things that I remember being cold called by a guy who ran a conference, and he said, "Oh, there'll be 2,000 people walking past your booth over 2 days." I said, "Well, that's really interesting." I said, "But with our content, there will be 700 million people walking past that content on LinkedIn ever." Because when you create content, you're building up a relevance and a trust and showing that you're an expert in a particular area. And I get inbound from people, "Oh, you wrote this article. I wrote it 5 years ago." Well, it's really relevant. Well, thank you. I must have been a thought leader in those days. But the fact is, it doesn't matter whether you're a company or an individual. That content is there forever, and will always show that you're an expert.
Yeah. You've been doing this for a long time, and you're one of the more engaging people I follow on LinkedIn. And you just, I think, get that intuitively. 10 years ago, I remember I was told to build a thought leadership platform on our website, but I wasn't given any budget for content. And so the CEO is the one that asked me, and I saw that the CEO always had this like group of like 6 people that followed him around wherever he went. And Bill McDermott, who one of the most charismatic leaders I've really ever been involved with, and the team of people that followed him around, they were recording him, they were taking videos, they were creating slides for his presentations. He was an amazing speaker. And so I remember thinking, why don't I just take his presentations and write an article about what he said? Why don't I take his speaker notes and turn that into an article? So like the first 14 articles we delivered on the platform were just simply repurposed stuff from our CEO that was all really good and engaging stuff. Mm-hmm. The first 80 people that subscribed to the platform were salespeople. And why did they subscribe to it? Because they had nothing else to share on LinkedIn to generate, engagement with the audiences of people, that customers they were trying to close. So, it's pretty interesting. We think that we're doing content marketing to, act like publishers and to create all this traffic. Well, sometimes it's really just about sharing the stuff that that's already sitting around your company to help your sales team engage more closely with the prospects that they're trying to close.
Yeah, someone was asking me yesterday about, what do I need to do? I said, well, you were on a phone call with the CFO last week. What did they say? Well, they said this, and this. I said, well, there's an article there.
Yep.
And I said, you just lost a piece of business about over consolidation. And I said, well, why is that? I said, because they do ERP, so they do. Do we consolidate in the accounting system, or do we have an external consolidation engine? I said, write an article about the difference between the two. Mm-hmm. They're working on a bid where they're looking at, is it bespoke, or is it do we use an off-the-shelf app? I said, there's an article there. There's always content.
Yeah.
And if you're, as a salesperson or marketer, there's always something you're trying to influence. Write an article about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I used to, how to create content without a budget. There were always these executives who would always like, hey, I want to write an article for the, platform that you're building. And it's like, yeah, maybe we'll see. But why don't you just tell me your answers to these 3 questions in an email first? And they would send me their answers. And I said, guess what? You just wrote your first article. Yeah. Because if I ask executives to write an article, I always tell people, I refuse to do it, because senior executives, they want to be so precise, and so we would do an interview and transcribe it and try to turn it into an article ghost written by a writer, and they would redline it all over the place. I don't like this, I don't like, but it was your words. But if you ask them to answer 3 questions in an email and say, guess what? I'll write an introduction and a conclusion, and the rest of it's just going to be your words. There's no approval process. It's just done. So, it's just a much simpler way to get content out of
I remember I was writing an article. There was a leader. She now lives in and works in Singapore. But Karen Clark, I remember I needed to write an email to her about how to use Twitter. And as I'm writing this email to her, and I'm thinking, this is a blog. Mm-hmm. I'll just change it a little bit and stick it. And it was the first point where the penny dropped about how easy and quick content can be created. Yeah. Helpful content.
Yeah.
Question. Why do brands say, buy our product because we're great?
So it's our natural instinct. And so I was a frustrated marketer, corporate marketer, startup CMO for most of my career, because I didn't realize I was always fighting this. What I now learned, what I later learned, was the natural instinct. And it's just like me and my kids. Like, I love my kids. I'm proud of them. And I love to show their pictures to everybody that's interested. We love our companies in most cases. We think that our job is to promote how great our company is and how awesome the products are that we sell, especially in sales and marketing. We certainly think that's our job. And we think that doing that is what generates the results. So it's our natural instinct to want to talk about who we are, what we sell, and why we're better. But I hate to use the analogy of when you meet somebody at a party, but when you meet somebody at a party, you don't walk up and say, "Hi, my name is Michael, and I'm freaking awesome." You never do that. No, I mean, at least not if you want to make friends.
And watches. You want to buy a watch?
Yeah, right. It's under the coat. You got to pull your coat out. Yeah. Exactly. You don't do that. You walk up and you say, "Hi, my name is Michael. How are you?" Or, what's your name? You ask a question.
Have you traveled far?
Exactly.
How's COVID? And you just create a conversation.
Exactly. And so we need to, that's why I've learned we need to teach executives that aren't in marketing, and certainly marketing leaders, that marketing needs to be part of that conversation. It needs to start with questions, not I'm awesome.
And we don't. I'm not aware that a lot of us like going down the secondhand car lot. I think you call it a lot in America, and basically for kicks, because you're going to be sold to, and you're going to end up walking away with a Jeep that you didn't want.
Yeah.
And you go, and your wife's going to say, "Why have you got that?" So, well, it kind of sold it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And because you don't do that, because you're going to be sold to. No one likes being sold to.
Nope. Mm-mm.
And so, but I know ever since I was a little boy in shorts, you were taught that you had to sell something, always be closing.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, everyone hates it.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of people on LinkedIn saying, "Well, I have to sell." Yeah, you do, but you'd sell more if you didn't sell.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly right. I mean, it's a lesson I learned a year in to my first sales role. Was I thought I was supposed to walk in and explain what we had to sell, and I didn't sell a thing. And then it was kind of funny. There was a guy named Barry. He was the same one I taught how to do email, and he was a client contact at one of my very first accounts, who ended up spending 3 times what he was spending with us at the time. I worked for the Nielsen company, and it really came down to, because I stopped selling and I actually kind of became friends with this guy, and I helped him learn how to do email. And, he was also colorblind. So I learned how, I taught him how to change the color settings on his monitor. Like, we became friends, and that's why he ended up buying stuff from me, not because I was hard selling.
Yeah. So you found some research that said that 80% of CEOs don't trust their CMO.
That's right. That's right. So, well, it's that rock and a hard place problem. CEOs think marketing's job is to do what the egotistical CEO wants them to do, right? I want to see our logo on the side of a football stadium. Of course, they want to see that. And then the CMO says, "Well, that's going to be $20 million," and the CEO says, "Well, but that's what I want. So just make it happen." So then the CMO does that, and then at the end of the year, the CEO is sitting at the board room table with the CMO and says, "Where's the return on investment of your budget?" It's it's a rock and a hard place unless the CMO says, "Hold on a second." I tell the story all the time of my friends from Capgemini, my very first client, and I helped them. Rena, who's actually a global CMO now, but really helped them to push back against their CEO and even their CMO at the time. They were asked by their CEO to put
because Accenture basically had Tiger Woods.
Exactly.
Somebody else, PwC or Deloitte, basically had that competitor had some other golfer.
That's
so
right.
The CEO of Capgemini said to the CMO "I want to sponsor a golfer."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it's like $20 million, and what's that going to generate?
Yeah. Exactly. So, luckily, we helped with this research. Is they knew that only 12% of their audience cared about golf at all. And so they were able to use that 88%, lost opportunity to say, "Hey, we're going to spend all this money to reach only 12%, let alone close them. Why don't we create stuff for, 0.1% of that budget that can generate millions and millions of impressions and leads and, closed projects." And that's what they did. It's one of the highest ROI producing programs I've ever seen. And it really, you could call it content marketing, but it was kind of content marketing and social selling brought together. They created a simple platform. Their sales team, their consultants were the ones that created the content. Their consultants then shared that content on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn became a lead generation machine for them. They closed business directly from, RFP requests that came in because they wrote an article. And so it was, just a massive, massive return on investment from a small budget.
I'm going to I'll put the article in the show notes, but It's a great case study on using content marketing versus sponsoring a golfer.
Yeah.
I remember, salespeople, would always say to me, "What we need is leads." That's great. I understand that. So what should we do to get those leads? Well, we need to go to a conference. Right. Okay. Or we need to do an event.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that, and I said, right, okay, well, let's talk through an event. So it's going to take 8 weeks to do an event because you've got to tell people in advance. We're then going to run the event and then you're going to follow it up. Why don't we just contact them direct? Because if we do that, we reduce the sales cycle by 8 weeks.
Yeah.
I was like, so how does that work? No. You don't need an event because, but it's economies of scale. We'll get 20 people in a room and we'll teach them, and therefore we've told 20 people. And I said, yeah, but you're still going to need to go back and start the sale. You're still going to talk to 20 people.
Yeah.
But it was always an event, and it's like, events don't work.
Yeah. Yeah, well, salespeople like to feel like they're busy at an event. They feel like they're selling, so it helps them feel good.
I actually think it's because a lot of it is because if you contact the person direct, the person can actually reject you.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that salespeople need to understand is that they're not rejecting you; they're rejecting the value proposition,
the approach. Exactly.
So you shouldn't actually take the rejection personally, but we generally do as salespeople.
Yeah.
Question. Do we need to take accountability in marketing?
I mean, 100%. It's kind of been the thread that has run through my whole career is approaching marketing like a salesperson. You deliver your quarterly goal or you don't, and how many marketers really truly think that way? They don't think about, and it doesn't have to be revenue because of course you've worked at companies where it can be 12 to 16 months for a deal to close, but look, it's at least something closer to a sale than to an activity. And so, don't measure how many events you've put on. Don't measure how many ads you've thrown out there. Reach and frequency should be completely killed. Marketers come out of college and they want to do two things. They want to run a big brand social media account because they think that's cool, and they can tell their friends how awesome they are because they're running Apple's Twitter account. Or they want to, work with a really fancy agency and create lots of ads because they think that's cool, or work for the agency that's creating the fancy ads. That's why we need to change the definition of marketing, because marketing has to become accountable for the budget that we're sort of handed by businesses, and therefore, really, financially should be able to show a return on investment from that.
So the argument that you always get is that it's all about brand. And what we're doing is that we're creating a brand, and we shouldn't be being forced. I've had a number of people that have been very forceful for me, marketeers. I'm a salesperson, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
They've been very forceful for me, basically saying we shouldn't be forced down the route of actually creating leads. It's about the brand, and if you look at and someone actually said to me on LinkedIn, so Nike and you saying that Nike and Levi and that it's not about the brand. For Nike and Levi, maybe, but 99.99999% of companies, you've never heard of them.
Yeah,
they're based in Joplin, in Missouri, and you've never heard of them. But they've still got to make a living.
Yeah.
And they've still got to spend the marketing budget. And right now, the marketing budget they may be spending is the cash that basically is just the cash in the company. And when the marketing budget's gone, the cash in the company's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I always kind of have to struggle to not roll my eyes whenever somebody mentions brand. Nielsen, the company, again, I worked for, their own consumer research from just a couple of years ago said that 66%, 2/3 of people wouldn't care if the brands they use disappeared completely. We're happy to replace any brand out. Their same study showed that most people can only think of off the top of their head 4 to 5 companies. And ironically, it's the same ones. It's Apple, Starbucks, Netflix, Amazon, Coca-Cola.
Adidas.
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly. So, if every single human being can only remember 5, and we already have those 5 pretty locked down, why do you think, and what would you have to spend in order to displace Apple? It's not going to happen, And so, marketing, there's whole industries of people that are trying to build brands, and they call themselves brand marketers. And I don't want to disparage an entire class of people in the industry, a subsegment of marketing, but it's never been the area of marketing I've focused on, because I've been focused on delivering business results.
You quoted something in our prep call that was, behind every bad marketing idea is an executive who asked for it.
Yeah, that was, I mean, that was something I said off the top of my head once at a keynote I was giving a couple of years ago. And I actually got, people were like laughing and clapping, and a whole bunch of retweets when people used to retweet stuff at events. So I've included that in just about every talk that I give, because I think it hits marketers right in their gut with both a funny statement, behind every piece of bad marketing is an executive who asked for it. Like, oh yeah, that's pretty funny. But at the same time, it's sad because it means that we've just gone ahead and done something that, an executive has asked us to do. So in the end, my message to marketers is you're the ones that are accountable. You're responsible for whether you say yes or no to a bad request from an executive. If you want to be considered strategic, you got to push back and say, if you want to achieve this outcome in for the business, then let me go do, what I know is going to deliver that outcome.
Hmm. So in the one of the articles you wrote recently, you quoted an article, and I thought it'd be like from years ago or something like that, but actually it was from the 22nd of April, 2020, which is about Coca-Cola slamming on the brakes of ad spend.
Mm-hmm.
And I read it, and I read it again, and then I went to Google, and I thought, this can't be right. This got to be fake news. So I then but it's what they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the quote is, brand advertising is ineffective. That was the quote from the CEO of Coca-Cola, the world's most recognized brand. And I found it really ironic. Now, I always tell people the context of his quote was during a global pandemic. I don't think it's a good idea for us to, use polar bears or, happy smiling children, shaking each other's hand across the border at India and Pakistan. It just doesn't seem like the right time to be advertising a sugary drink that'll make you fat. And so that was the context. But, the question it should make any marketer ask is, if it's not effective now, why was it effective before? Yeah. Was it even? And ironically, this is my favorite part. If you follow the threads of the Coca-Cola story, they didn't have a CMO for a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of mad that they rehired one, because I loved saying, guess what? In keynotes, who's the CMO of Coca-Cola, the world's most recognized brand? And everybody be like, I don't know who it is. Like, guess what? He doesn't exist, or she doesn't exist, because they took a salesperson, made them the head of growth, which I think was ironic, because Coca-Cola's sales have been down for 7% year over year for the past couple of years. And he had a quote in Ad Age that said, in order to sell more Coke, we just need to create ads of happy people drinking Coke. And this goes back to where we started, marketing amnesia. Like, if he was in an audience hearing someone say that, he would probably know that was ridiculous.
Yes.
But yet it's what he said, because he was suddenly thrust into this role of being responsible for marketing as a non-marketer, and thought that marketing was just about creating ads of happy people. It's sad and funny at the same time, but it's true. And that's the crazy part.
I usually, if I'm doing a presentation about advertising, I'll always ask the audience to stand up at the beginning, and then say, sit down if you can remember the last 3 ads you've seen. And no one ever sits down. Mm-hmm. And usually at that point I say that, marketing's got a problem, and people start groaning because they realize that I've done them over. Mm-hmm. And they've been spending on advertising, and no one remembers it.
Yeah. I mean, every year we have the Super Bowl, and I people always love to talk about which, ad did you like during the NFL Super Bowl. And I love to then say, after somebody says, well, my favorite ad was this one, I say, well, do you remember the brand behind that ad? This year, Jason Momoa, who was from in Game of Thrones and Aquaman, there was an ad where he took his muscles off, and it was really funny. It was actually really well done. It was kind of creepy. And it was everybody's favorite ad, but no one could remember the brand that actually, paid for that advertising, because it had nothing to do with it. And then
that one year, that guy from Oreo, the biscuit company, did that tweet, and it's and that was the thing that everybody was talking about.
Yeah.
And there's if you search for it, there's a Volvo car. They actually ran a campaign on social media. They didn't advertise. Mm-hmm. And they got, and there's a video on it on YouTube. If you search for Volvo Super Bowl ad. It will take
Yeah.
you through how
Yeah.
they basically got more, whatever the measurement is on social media, than GM or whoever it was who advertised on the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Getting to the end here, my
Mhm.
final question is: 60 to 70% of content created goes unused.
Mhm.
Why is that?
It's back to the last question. Marketers create content because someone asked them to. And so that stat is actually a little bit old. It's 5 or 6 years old from SiriusDecisions, which is a pretty popular B2B consulting firm. They do a lot of research. I had the similar experience. So when I was at SAP and I became the global head of content marketing, and so I was trying to put together a content strategy, and we did this audit. We worked across 5 different divisions. We counted every single piece of content, and we were lucky we had a digital asset management system, so we could kind of count easily. And in the digital asset management system, content was requested, agencies fulfilled that request, created a piece of content. The content lived in this repository. And then the marketer was supposed to hit send, and it would go to the website, it would go to a printer, it would go to an ad agency to run an ad on. 56% of the content that marketers spent their money with agencies to build never got published out anywhere. And so, I was running around the organization saying, this is crazy. 60% of our budget is going to create stuff with agencies that we never even use. And that's what SiriusDecision confirmed a few years later. Marketers spend money because they have it. They create content because someone asked them to. If marketers felt accountable for delivering a business result, we would never do that stuff. And so that's really what it comes down to for marketers. And, if we had worked together, Tim, I would have sat down with you and said, what do you need? Mm-hmm. And we're going to go create that. And then you need to tell me if it worked, and maybe help me count what worked, and how much it worked. And, that's the conversation that marketers and salespeople should be having all the time.
Yeah, we used to, the company that I used to work for, they centralized all content creation in California. Mm-hmm. So it's all written in American. The people because it was all spelled with Z's.
Yeah.
So just if people don't know, you spell color, organization, labor, all of these words are spelled differently.
Yep.
And a lot of people in the UK, which is the equivalent of the turnover of your, it's not big, but we turn over about the similar as California as a state. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's not big, but it is in the scheme of things from Europe, it's the biggest turnover. But people wouldn't read the content. So we used to get, you create a new, can you send us in a Word file? So we can then do a search and replace of the spelling. Yeah. But there again, at the end of the day, what we wanted in sales was a vertical message. And if you're creating something at a high level, top of funnel, which is supposed to be catch-all and it's catch-all but nobody, because people in public sector, I think you call that federal. So in government, if you're selling to government, you're going to have a different language than if you're selling to manufacturing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. And industry verticalized messaging is so important.
Well, I disappeared for a second.
You did, but you're back.
Maybe it was my old company reaching out and getting me. Anyway, I could actually, I had to stop writing questions because I thought there's 40 minutes worth, and I'm not bad. That's 43. Mm-hmm. I didn't think I'd get them all, but I thought I have done. For me, it's been insightful. I hope people actually find this interesting as well. I could run basically a conversation with you all day and ask you questions all day. But
yeah, I agree. We could keep going.
Yeah. But nobody would watch it. But it would be nice to do it.
It would be fun.
Yeah, it would be fun. I'd find it fun, and you'd find it fun.
Yeah.
Maybe we're becoming like old marketers.
Yes.
But Michael, before we go, remind people where they can get hold of you.
Yeah, marketinginsidergroup.com, or just connect with me on LinkedIn.
So it's and Brenner is BRENNER.
That's right.
There's people that I can't spell my own name, so difficulty enough spelling yours. So Michael, it's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed it. I mean, it's I love your content, and I'll make sure that your articles go into the show notes. But it's been great talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Michael. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.